Oh my goodness. This is Norma from the Learning Corner with Norma, and I'm so excited to bring to you today the thing that all quilters love to find, that perfect 1/4 inch. Oh my goodness, if we find that, it's like holy moly. So that does make a huge difference in finding an accurate 1/4 inch to the rest of your quilting. So when we're piecing, we shoot for that goal, but I want to ask you to even shoot further and try to get that scant 1/4 inch. And you say, Norma, my goodness, what is a scant 1/4 inch? That is a good question. So I have many people ask me that. So here's what it really is. It is 1 or 2 threads to the left of the full 1/4 inch. Because what you have to compensate for with the 1/4 inch is you have to compensate for your thread, you have to compensate for your needle, and compensate for that seam. So those are all things you have to compensate for in the fabric. So when you do a full 1/4 and then that thread and that needle are taking up some space, then it ends up being off for you. So why is a scant 1/4 important? Because when you do a block, let's say that has 12 pieces to it, and you're 1/8 of an inch and you keep going and then you end up with this block and it's way too small, it's because you went too large with your 1/4 inch. And we're human, so what do? We think bigger. So what we do when we think bigger is that we automatically go to the bigger side, like McDonald's, big size it, right? So we tend to go to the right. So we need to go to the left when we get that 1/4 inch. So that's what I'm going to work with you today on, is finding that scant 1/4 and how to achieve it. So I have some tried and true methods, and that's what I'm going to work with you today on. And I'm going to first tell you that every plate on your sewing machine usually has a 1/4 inch. And if you look, I see a 1/4 inch on my machine here, and I see a 1/4 inch on the plate here. So each machine usually has that. And if it doesn't, I'm going to show you what you can do for that. But usually they have that 1/4 inch, so we know that's there. So what we need to concentrate on to get our scant is we need to bump to the left a little bit. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to test it. So I tell you all at home to test your machines. So one of the things you can do for a test is you can take 3 2-inch pieces. These are 2 by 10. So I've got 3 of them in contrasting colors. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them together. And we are going to put right sides together. And we're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch. And then we're going to put another piece on it and sew a scant 1/4 inch. And this is going to be your test at home to see how you find that scant 1/4. So I'm putting it in the machine, and what I'm doing is I see my 1/4 inch, right? And I'm bumping it to the left a little bit because I have to think 1 or 2 threads to the left. And I do usually like a scrap piece to start, so I'm going to grab a scrap piece of fabric and I'm going to feed it right into that machine. Now the other thing I want you to pay attention to what I'm looking at. I don't look at the needle and I don't look at the edge of the foot. So let's talk about the foot a minute. I have a Bernina here and I'm using a 97D foot on that because it is an actual 1/4 inch foot. And so the foot width is a 1/4 inch. So I suggest you get one of those and use a 1/4 inch foot that's exact. Now, they also have the ones with the fabric guide that have the little guide on the side for you to use. I'm going to tell you I'm not a fan of those. And why is because sometimes we push our fabric too much or we don't push it enough. And so this way you have more control if you just get a 1/4 inch foot. Now, I'm here to tell you that this is Norma's way. And some people have great success with that, with using the fabric guide. And if you do, by all means do it. Do what works best for you. But I'm here to share with you Norma's learning tools. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this. And I've got my foot on and I've got my 1/4 inch and I bumped it to the left a little bit. Now I don't watch the foot or the needle again. I'm going to repeat that. I look down here. I'm looking where the fabric is feeding in because I want you to look down at the part where it's feeding in instead of exactly at the foot or the needle. So I want you to look down in that area and go to the left just a tiny bit. But your foot is a good guide, so I'm actually kind of on the toe of the foot. And I'm going to straighten out my fabric here a bit, and I'm going to keep going. And And we're going to sew that strip right along there. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to take another scrap piece of fabric here and put in here. And the only reason I'm doing that is so I can feed my next piece in. And now I have this piece here. And I've just added 2 pieces of contrasting fabric here. So I have 2. Now I need to add another one because we're going to test it. And this is a good test for you to use on your sewing machine at home. And we're going to put this one in and keep going. And I'm looking down below to see where it's feeding in to make sure I'm at that 1/4 inch. And this will give you a good scant quarter. And I guarantee you that our end is supposed to be 5 inches, that we will have a 5-inch piece when we're done because we did scant. And I'm just a tiny bit to the left. And I'm following that. And here's my other scrap piece. And you'll see my technique. I'm going to show this again too in the piecing section, how I use 2 scraps. So now we have 1 whole piece, and we need this piece to be 5 inches, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press it away from the center. So I'm going to take this and press it away from the center. And just do that ever so lightly. And so you can see that I got my seams pressed away. Let's touch that one up just real quick. All right, and then we're going to take the ruler and we're going to put it up here. And we're going to see this is supposed to be 5 inches. You see that? 5 inches across exactly. So I know that I tested that and it was a perfect scant quarter, and I ended up with exactly a 5-inch piece. So if you're worried about your piecing and your blocks are off all the time and your seams are off, test your machine with one of these tests. So that's one, and I showed you how to watch that 1/4 inch. So now I'm going to show you another method that I use. And by the way, here's our little 12-in-1 gauge. I'm going to grab this little guy real quick. And if the blue and thread, you can't see it very good, but you have this gauge with a 1/4 inch. So test yourself with that too, and you can see if you're within the 1/4 inch. So that's a good test too. So I'm going to put that away. And now what I'm going to do is tell you about Marcy Baker's sewing edges. So these are also another sure way to get a scant quarter. She devised this whole system on how to do a scant quarter, and I use this once in a while as well because it works very successfully. So what we're going to do is when you buy these, I showed you these earlier, they're little purple strips. And so what we're going to do is when we open it up, inside it has this guide, and you cut away around here, and then you put this guide on your machine. So let's do that real quick. Alrighty, so here we have our piece that we cut from Marcy Baker's template that shows us how to get a 1/4 inch. So we're going to take this and we're going to put this up to our sewing machine at the bottom here. And this line right here, it tells you the directions inside here. The line is where we're going to put our needle down. Alright, so we're going to set it up here on the machine. And we're going to put it right square with the machine edge here. And we're going to take the needle down and we're going to put the needle right on top of that line that it shows us in the directions where that line is on the cardboard, and that tells us where the 1/4 inch is, right? I'm going to scooch it over just a tiny bit so I get it right there. Once I get that in place, then I'm going to take my purple strip and I'm going to peel that, and I'm going to put that right next to, and if I'm seeing my 1/4 inch piece down here on my plastic plate, and it's a little bit to the left, so I know it's a scant quarter. And now I'm going to put this down, and you notice I don't put the purple on the plate where you're getting into the bobbin. I put it right next to that cardboard piece right there, okay? And then we're going to lift the needle up and we're going to sew. And we're going to use this as our guide. This time we're going to test it with 3 pieces of 2.5 by 2.5. Alrighty? So here we go. We're going to take these guys and put these guys on each side. And we're going to put this guy in the middle. And we're going to put them together. And we're going to hold them together. And we're going to sew. And we're going to use the purple strip as our guide this time. Alrighty, and I'm going to find a scrap piece of fabric here so that we can start with a scrap and end with a scrap so it's easier for us, so it grabs something. I do that so your feed dogs have something to hang on to. Alright, so here we go. We're using the side of the purple as our guide this time. And our fabric is right up there. Alright. I'm going to do another scrap piece just right behind it real quick. Well, that's not big enough. I have all this scrap fabric over here and Alright, here we go. We're going to put it right behind. And we're going to cut this one. Alright, now we're going to add our other piece on the other side. Now when we're done with this one, this test should be 6.5. So you can do the test with the 2-inch ones, or you can do this one with the 2.5 inches. Alrighty, and we're going to cut that. And here we go. Here's the test. We're going to open it up and open the seams open. And this time we want it to be a 6.5 inch piece. So let's see how we do on that. And I could have probably even finger pressed it. All right, so we got that nice and flat. And this is a 6.5 inch ruler. So I'm going to hold this up to show you. And there's 6.5 inch, right? Perfect. So we got a 6.5 inch ruler and our piece is 6.5 inches. So that's your test. That's your 2 ways to test it. So I encourage you to test this at home and try that. Now I got one more thing to show you. So I'm going to tell you with the purple piece here, Marcy Baker's purple piece, you can take this and you can set it on the side of your machine and you can take it to retreats with you or whatever, and you can reuse it. So you can peel and stick those. So those are really nice. But she did test it and it is a true scant quarter. So I would suggest trying that. So the other thing I'm going to show you, if you don't have a 1/4 inch foot or plate on your machine, you can find a true 1/4 inch by using a piece of graph paper. And graph paper is exactly a 1/4 inch, right? So you take the graph paper and you put it in your machine and you do your needle down right on that graph paper. Then what you can do, rather than using Marcy Baker strips, you can take some blue painter's tape and you can stick it right up there on your machine and give yourself a guide your own way. So those are some ways that you can do that, and this was just one if you don't have a guide or something to use that you can do. And thank you for coming to Learning Corner with Norma. And next time we are going to talk about the 2 ruler method and cutting accurately. Yay! I can't wait to see you next time.